Urgent warning. Mark Carney is outbidding Trudeau and banning your car. What it means for Canadians. Mark Carney is preparing to implement one of the most ambitious and controversial policy overhauls in recent Canadian history. Framed as climate leadership, his plans are built on steep government spending and aggressive green mandates. He's proposing to add $225 billion in new federal debt, surpassing even Justin Trudeau's track record. That means more borrowing, more interest, and more pressure on future generations of taxpayers. Shockingly, Carney hasn't released a budget to explain how he'll pay for it all, raising concerns that this is spending without transparency. At the heart of Carney's agenda is a total ban on new gas and diesel vehicle sales by 2035. Starting in 2026, 1 in 5 vehicles sold must be electric. The mandate increases annually, regardless of whether Canadians can afford or even want EVs. Automakers like Ford, GM, and Toyota have warned that EV demand is dropping, especially as government subsidies disappear. Dealers could be stuck with unsellable inventory, while manufacturers question the economic logic of producing vehicles consumers aren't buying. Even worse, automakers are already scaling back EV investments due to declining profitability, and Canada's insistence on mandates could put its auto sector at risk. These mandates hit Canadians hard at the wallet. Electric vehicles cost on average $15,000 more than gas-powered cars. For working families, rural residents, and small businesses, that's a huge burden. Charging infrastructure remains spotty outside major cities, and cold winters slash battery performance. Tradespeople, farmers, and Canadians living far from urban hubs rely on traditional vehicles to get to work and support their families. For them, this policy is less about the environment and more about losing freedom of choice. And it's not just car buyers who are affected. Carney's new hidden industrial carbon tax targets oil, gas, fertilizer, steel, and utilities, critical industries that provide the backbone of the Canadian economy. While he may have paused the carbon tax for consumers, this behind-the-scenes version increases costs across the board. It's not just manufacturers who pay, it's ordinary Canadians who feel the pinch through higher grocery bills, energy costs, and transportation fees. Whether you're heating your home or buying bread, these costs stack up invisibly in your everyday purchases. The problem is even bigger when you consider our energy grid. Right now, many regions, especially Alberta, struggle with demand spikes in winter. Transitioning millions of vehicles to electric would overload the system. Experts estimate that one province alone would need 3 new nuclear reactors to handle the load. None are built. None are planned. The required infrastructure, nuclear, hydro, or otherwise, simply doesn't exist. Yet the government is forging ahead with a mandate that assumes the impossible is just around the corner. Meanwhile, Canada is already drowning in debt, over $1.4 trillion and growing. Annual interest payments alone exceed $70 billion, or more than $1 billion per week. That's enough to build a major hospital every 7 days, but instead it vanishes into debt servicing. And Carney has still not presented a full budget, leaving Canadians in the dark about where the money is going or how these ambitious programs will be funded. Without answers, the suspicion grows. These aren't sustainable policies, they're political dreams with no fiscal roadmap. Adding to the burden are proposed carbon tariffs on goods from countries without equivalent climate policies. The idea is to protect Canadian producers from foreign competition, but the effect is higher prices for consumers. Clothing, appliances, and groceries could all become more expensive as a result. In a time of already high inflation, this extra layer of taxation threatens to push essential goods further out of reach for many families. Rather than helping the environment, it may just shrink household budgets and drive jobs and investment out of Canada. Inflation itself is far from solved. While the rate may be slowing, that only means prices are rising less quickly, not falling. The damage is done. Lockdowns, supply chain shocks, and Bank of Canada money printing created a flood of new dollars chasing fewer goods. Combined with policies that restrict economic output, like pipeline bans and overregulation, the result is fewer jobs, higher prices, and a weaker economy. Carney's spending plans and energy restrictions risk pouring fuel on that fire. Agricultural producers are especially vulnerable. The industrial carbon tax hits fertilizer and farming operations directly, raising costs at every step of the food supply chain. Farmers will pay more to grow food, transport it, and store it, all of which ends up on your grocery bill. Combined with emissions caps and energy regulations, Carney's climate agenda threatens to make Canadian food more expensive and less competitive internationally. The people who feed the country are being choked by red tape and rising costs. Despite Carney's elite resume, including a PhD in economics and experience at the Bank of Canada and Bank of England, his policies seem disconnected from on-the-ground reality. No matter how polished the messaging, Canadians are seeing through the narrative. Everyday families, tradespeople, and small business owners are asking how they're supposed to absorb all these changes. When debt is exploding, inflation persists, and basic necessities are getting harder to afford, green dreams become economic nightmares. Canadians need solutions that work, ones grounded in fiscal responsibility and real-world feasibility. That means expanding clean energy where it's viable, investing in carbon capture, streamlining permitting for natural resource development, and giving Canadians energy choice. Alternatives exist that balance environmental stewardship with affordability. Conservatives like Pierre Poilievre have pushed for such paths, arguing against top-down mandates and reckless borrowing. Ultimately, this is about more than cars or carbon taxes. It's about the future direction of the country. Should policy be dictated by ideology or informed by pragmatism? Do we invest in infrastructure we actually need, or chase unworkable targets while everyday Canadians suffer the consequences? Mark Carney may position himself as a responsible adult in the room, but his policies suggest otherwise. Without transparency, economic realism, and respect for individual freedom, this path could lead not to progress but to collapse. Canadians deserve leadership that listens, budgets that balance, and policies that respect their daily realities. Carney's ambitious plans might earn applause from global elites, but they risk alienating the very people who will be forced to pay the price. If Canada is to thrive, it must return to pragmatic governance before green fantasies become economic catastrophes.